he talking to us?
I have no idea. He's an arrogant little jerk.
There is no sweat on him, though.
Oh, no, can't sweat. It's the rules.
It is?
Body Donna rules.
Oh.
House rules. No sweating.
No, he doesn't.
Scoops him up, does skip.
Hey, I'm still waiting for their fitness video. I didn't see it at the Blockbuster.
Well, I'll get you a Jane Fonda video. I got several of them in my shelf. Skip.
You ever watch him?
Look at me. You think I did? Of course not.
Oh, good.
I'm a buffet man.
What do you use him to level tables?
Yeah. Among other things.
Yeah, you got an uneven kitchen table, you put a video under it.
Nice drop kick. You know, he might not like this kid's attitude, but he's a great athlete. Not all damn push-ups. Let's be real arrogant. Real conceited there. And Barry Horowitz, three-quarter Nelson. The leg is up. Oh, Horowitz wins. Horowitz wins. Horowitz wins.
Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach, from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Horowitz wins! Horowitz wins! This is Tom Healy. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Jeffrey Ryan. Jeff, one of the biggest upsets in WWF history. I'm looking forward to covering it. But first, how the hell are you doing?
It's a good week. I know we don't like talking about current stuff around here, but I got to say I bought tickets for the upcoming AEW show that's here in my town. And so I'm pumped about that because just a different energy and just kind of, I get pumped for a live show, especially when I know what's coming. And so buying the tickets this week, it always makes for a good week. So that's good stuff. And then with that, I make no secret. I love a good stable, but I also love just a good jobber and some enhancement talent. And this week we are at the peak of the mountain as far as I'm concerned with today's guest. So exciting stuff talking about this one. As always, subscribe to The Payoff. Give us those 5 stars. Spread the word about the show. For those of you that new kind of Mac update, the podcast app, just click write a review. Give us those 5 stars. That's all we're looking for. Super simple, even on that new program, a little bit different than iTunes, but it's right there. Just write a review, 5 stars, simple stuff. So you can always find us again, social media at Payoff Pod. We're on all of it. You can find us everywhere. Tom and I are always checking it. So drop us a line there. We love hearing from you. And of course, that Patreon, just one tier, payoffpatreon.com. We got our after show. We got those bonus episodes. We got discussions about big things happening when Tom and I, feel like sharing a little bit more with you. So check that out. Just one tier, payoffpatreon.com. So Tom, what else do you have for those listening?
Well, hey, you never know, Jeff. You may see a classic match at the AEW TV tapings when you're there that in 10 years we will cover on The Payoff.
I'd be all right with that.
You just never know. So, as always, thank you to everyone that's listening. Make sure to subscribe. That's how you support the show, and we greatly appreciate it. This is the first time ever we're actually covering 2 matches. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this episode. Also, I promised someone on Twitter, Jeff, that we would no longer spoil the matches by playing audio clips at the beginning of the show. Unfortunately, this is one where, sorry, Barry Horowitz wins. That's why we're covering him and Skip. So I can't promise that we're going to do that every week, but we'll do our best not to spoil things for our loyal listeners. I think that's all I have, man. Always my reminder is go back in the archives. If there's something that looks interesting, check it out. And by subscribing, you never know what episode you're going to hear next from us. So we certainly appreciate that and appreciate all of our loyal listeners. And every week we're picking up more followers, more listeners. And we love the momentum of the show. And we greatly appreciate everything you do to support it. So with that being said, if there's anyone new listening, Jeff, quick rundown of the agenda for today, and we'll get started.
Yeah, we say it that we like giving a deep dive into a match every week as the first payoff, that every Monday we're breaking it down. 3 parts to that episode. So, we've had some others in the past that, they might talk about it, but we are the first one doing it every week, bringing it to you. So those 3 parts, we got the build, the payoff, and the aftermath. And so, what happened before, what happens during, what happened after, simple stuff. And so when we got the reviews, we kind of share those and the kind of write-ups, and then also just Tom and I talk about the match ourselves. So, good stuff there as always. So Tom, how come you wanted to talk about this match?
Yeah, two big things, man. First of all, I was genuinely shocked as a kid that this happened, right? Like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'd been watching this guy look at the lights at the end of every match for a decade, and all of a sudden, there he is. He gets a win. I thought that was really cool. So I loved it. And then I was just glued to the product that summer because this was all leading up to SummerSlam 95, which was in Pittsburgh at the Igloo, which I went to. So fond memories of this, looking forward to covering it. And Barry was an awesome guest. So Jeff, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I touched on it before, but not only do I love just a good jobber enhancement talent, but you got to appreciate a feel-good story in wrestling. We don't see it all that often anymore, through kind of all the complaining and things like that. But I think of like the rise of Daniel Bryan. You got Kofi winning, the belt, not how he lost it, but winning. And so in recent memory, I think, of a kind of someone that not this losing streak, but kind of in the same role that very much gets over with the fans. And some people love him, some people hate him, but one that really got over in this same fashion, James Ellsworth, the Chinless Wonder. And so I'm all for a good story like that. It does add something different,
Did you call James Ellsworth the Chinless Wonder?
That's what he is. Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
There you go. Yep. And so the Chinless Wonder. And so it's good stuff. And so with so many of these stories we discuss on the payoff, and I'm sure, many of our listeners can relate. I knew about Barry Horowitz. I knew about the streak, but I didn't know the full story, not only just behind this match, but just his career. And so, know him, see the photos, things like that, but bits and pieces, but fun for me going back and doing the research. So that's really why I wanted to do this one. So with that, let's get to the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
All right, here we are. It's the build. It's Wrestling Challenge, July 9th, 1995. That's what we're going to talk about first. Then we're going to talk about the August 12th, 95 edition of WWF Superstars. Both of these are Barry Horowitz against Skip. So let's talk 7/9/95 Wrestling Challenge. It was in Wilkes-Barre, PA, small venue. At the time, they were doing 4 episodes of filming at a site that would then air over the 4 following weeks. Savio Vega wins a jobbing scrub match. We had some highlights from Raw, Double J Sid DiBiase interview, the match we're going to cover, Man Mountain Rock in a in a jobber match, King Mabel interview, 1 2 3 Kid beats a jobber, Waylon Mercy beats a jobber, Double J music video, man. All kinds of stuff going on. Shawn and Diesel interview. So fun little show there. And then the other one was this Superstars taping on August 12th of 1995, which was taped in Evansville, Indiana. We had Hakushi against Aldo Montoya, Hunter Hearst Helmsley against Brick Brown, Adam Baum in a jobber match, Waylon Mercy defeating Buck Quartermain. Do you know who Buck Quartermain is, Jeff?
I don't. We're gonna have to track him down. I am not familiar with Buck Quartermain.
I'm not either. But while I'm talking, look it up because I'm very curious. And then we had the other match we're gonna cover, which is this Barry Horowitz versus Skip match, which was a 10-minute challenge. Barry Horowitz had to not lose to Skip in the first 10 minutes. So fun stuff there. Now, in my research, I wanted to go back and look at Wrestling Challenge and Superstars, just see what we could find that would be interesting. As far as Wrestling Challenge, and later would become WWF Challenge, it aired from 86 to 95. Here's what's crazy, Jeff. In that entire stretch of 9 years, there was one title change. Yeah, right.
9 years, yeah.
Money Inc., which was obviously Erwin R. Shyster and Ted DiBiase, they would beat the Natural Disasters in 1992 with the help of the Head Shrinkers. Over the years, there were a ton of different commentary teams. The one I thought would have been probably the most fun to listen to, and they were only together for about 5 months, was Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Now, Jeff, what do you think my favorite moment was in the history of Wrestling Challenge?
I was a Natural Disasters fan, so hopefully you don't steal my favorite one because that's a hell of a title match right there. But what was your favorite moment?
Well, on the Wrestling Challenge happened to be the barbershop episode with Shawn Michaels super kicking the hell out of Marty Jannetty, ditching that loser, throwing him through the real glass that was there in that barbershop set, and going on to becoming the greatest in-ring performer of all time. That's my favorite Wrestling Challenge moment.
Never thought about that. You know, you've seen the clip 1,000 times, but never realized, I don't think, that it was on Wrestle Challenge.
Yeah.
Challenge.
So interestingly enough, they had the Snake Pit, which was Jake Roberts' one. I remember one episode in particular that had Hogan and Undertaker on it. But yeah, they had the Jake Roberts one, okay? I think that was the Snake Pit. And then they had the Brother Love Show, which was on there for a little bit. Obviously, Brutus Beefcake's Barbershop. And then they had the King's Court with Lawler in 93. It debuted. So they had those, you know, kind of signature things. I know they've done it more recently, like with KO and Miz. I like them. I think you find a good talker like the Miz, it's a great way to get him over. You know, I think Barbershop was because Brutus wasn't able to work at the time. You know, Brother Love was a personality. But I think when done right, especially, hell, you got 90 hours of wrestling to produce these days. You know, I think that they can fit, you know, interview segment on. So I like these if they're done right and really enjoy it. I even think now, and I don't know who it would be. Maybe we can talk about this in the after show, Jeff. But, you know, even now on like Raw or SmackDown, it would be fun if there was like a legend who was a great talker that still had a show. I mean, obviously he's no longer with us, but a Rowdy Piper or a Mean Gene Okerlund, someone like that just did that. They were a great talker and they could get over the matches and angles. I don't know, maybe like a Mick Foley or someone, but I think that could be fun.
It'd be a good way to bring some of them back in less wrestling roles. Yeah.
Yeah, and just something where, you know, they don't have to get physical every week. It's not about putting anyone over every single week, but it's just something, and it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun to see Mick Foley on TV every week in, you know, something other than a GM role. So that's Wrestling Challenge. The other show we're going to cover is Superstars of Wrestling, which would go on to be known as just Superstars. That debuted in 86. And Jeff, it was around in like different incarnations up until like 2003. I mean, it was just on and off, and it took the place of the Action Zone and all kinds of crazy stuff. A little bit more of a lineage there. By my count, we had 2, 4, 6, 8 different title changes on that show. Let's see, something that would be noteworthy was Ricky the Dragon losing the IC title to the Honky Tonk Man, who would go on to have that long run. Some tag title changes on it. Mr. Perfect beat Kerry Von Erich on there. So just some fun matches there, but a little bit more of a lineage. And my favorite commentary team from Superstars was Vince McMahon and Rio Rogers, who were only a commentary team for 1 week. Jeff, do you know who Rio Rogers is?
Do you know who Rio Rogers is? I
do, and I didn't even have to look it up. It was Bruce Pritchard.
Interesting. Okay.
Who was on commentary for 1 week, knows Rio Rogers. And I think he had some, I don't know if it was like a Texas accent or what he was supposed to be or who he was supposed to rip off or whatever. Maybe it was a rib on someone. I don't know. So some of those episodes are on the WWE Network. They were just added in January. So that's a little overview for you. Now, going on in the business at the time, I got some fun ones for you this week. In the Torch, in the week leading up to this first match we're going to cover, the main WWF story, and I'm going to read you the headline, Independent Doinks Banned. I guess there were guys on the independent scene that were dressing as Doinks saying they were Doink. So the WWF was really cracking down on imposter Doinks at the time on the independent scene. Now they're a billion-dollar company that publicly trades, but at that point they were chasing down fake Doinks.
Real problem in the wrestling world back then.
Here's another fun one for you, okay? The Torch would report that Dustin Rhodes was coming into the company. He was going to be a dark-haired heel going by the name The Gunslinger. Do you know what the opposite of a gunslinging dark-haired heel is?
What do you got?
It's Gold Dust. I mean, it's the opposite of what he did. It's kind of funny that somehow that was the speculation. The Gunslinger. I don't know. Maybe it would have been better. Maybe it would have been worse. Just depends on what your better and worse are, I suppose. Here's another one for you. Shane Douglas is coming into the company. and this was reported by the Torch, the idea circulating was that he would be brought in as the new president of the WWF. He'd be critical of all the top talent and say he was the true franchise in the company and then become a wrestler. Do you know what the opposite of that gimmick is?
What?
Dean Douglas, a school teacher. That's who Shane Douglas would become. So it was reported a couple weeks later, well, they're going to call him Dean Douglas. It's the franchise, but a little bit different of a spin. No, it was a terrible gimmick. How they took Shane Douglas, great talker, solid in-ring performer, and they gave him that stupid-ass teacher gimmick. I'm still pissed off about it. What a waste of talent. The working president in the WWF, Jack Tunney, would be gone from his office role, and so they'd have to bring in a new president who would become Gorilla Monsoon. Also, we're building towards a Jeff Jarrett versus the Roadie feud, which we were thinking might pay off at SummerSlam 1995. Only problem, following Jeff Jarrett's classic match at the In Your House pay-per-view against Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title, Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie walked out on the company. And I still believe to this day, Jeff Jarrett's best match of his career was that Shawn Michaels match. You know, we need to cover that at some point on this show. Very underrated match. I went back not that long ago and just watched it for the hell of it. It's fantastic. So if you want some extracurricular research for our listeners, that would be it. Go watch that match. So that's all I got for you. A lot going on, some fun stuff. Jeff, how did we get to Barry Horowitz getting the win, his first win on WWF programming?
I'll say quote first wins, because I've got some notes here. You can't get a page and a half of notes on this stuff without having a single win. But
if it happened, it's not getting past Jeff.
Don't worry about it. I got us covered. So Barry Horowitz, he joined the WWF. It was 1987. He had previously spent some time in championship wrestling from Florida. That was CFW and one of the NWA kind of branches at that time. This was back in 1979. And so about 8 years after his wrestling debut is when he joined the World Wrestling. So while a major part of his story was that he never won, he did get some wins. It was both singles and tag. The tag was with a one Brooklyn Brawler. And this was during his first run at WWF, though, that was 1987 to 1990. Maybe he could count on one hand the amount of wins that he got during that time. He moved on to WCW. His debut match there was actually a payoff fan favorite. Brian Pillman was who he went against. He actually lost this one, and that his entire time in WCW, he had one win. So, Tom, any idea who that win was against?
I do not know.
This is against one Tommy Angel via pinfall. Just like a lot of people we're going to bring up and have brought up. Not a whole lot out there about Tommy Angel, but one we will dig and see what we can find. But that was his one WCW win. He actually he bounced around a bit here. He was in Global Force Wrestling in the early 90s, but then got back in the WWF in 1991. So,
hey, you were supposed to look up Buck Quartermain for me. You never did.
Yeah, he was not the persona of someone, that we now know. So is what I will say. So Buck Quartermain, that's who it was.
Yeah,
so if we don't remember him.
He's got a Wikipedia page.
He does. We'll dig in a little bit more for the after show. But keep in mind now, we're back in the WWF, WWE. It's October 1991. He had some big matches against some big names, which, yes, he lost. The members of the Legion of Doom. We had Greg Valentine, which props to Greg. He was working when we were there. He was working the table all StarCast weekend. So props to Greg for being out there and hanging out with fans all 4 days. And then he even had an Intercontinental match against one Bret the Hitman Hart, which he did lose, like many others. He took on Tito Santana, Owen Hart, just a lot of big names that we know and kind of enjoy. 1992, this is where we really start getting into a little bit more of the revisionist history. He did have some wins here, but they were either on house shows or dark matches. And so not really counting those because those, aren't part of what's happening in the real deal, but it did get a couple of wins there. And so after all this time, so this was 1991 when he came back. Now we're shooting forward. We're at Survivor Series 1993. Hadn't won. He was a part of the tag team, I guess I'll call it, or stable. He was the Red Knight on a team that was the Hart family, which was Bret Hart, Bruce Hart, Owen Hart, and Keith Hart, and of course Stu Hart, dad. And they defeated Shawn Michaels and his Knights. And this is one that I will have to dig in a little bit more. I did a little bit here, but you had Shawn Michaels, and then there was the Black Knight, the Blue Knight, the Red Knight, and Shawn Michaels. So,
do you know why Shawn Michaels is with the Knights?
This
isn't a joke. This isn't a joke.
That's how you normally set it up. No, why would I do? But go ahead and share why he was with the Knights.
It was supposed to be Jerry Lawler, but then he got fired.
Yes.
So that's why it made no sense. I mean, what Shawn Michaels doing with Knights? Well, it was supposed to be the King, and he was supposed to have Knights, and he was in a feud with Bret Hart. So,
yes, and it was the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah.
And so with that, so there are pictures of this team out there. But it was something. It was a 30-minute match too, which just sounds crazy. I would say calling what they had on, like saying that their masks, is generous, because they weren't like they practically look like ski masks and like tights. It was just a bad look. And so, we'll share the photo on Twitter because it was just something. It was out of this world. And so I do want to point out his occasional tag partner, though. This was Reno Riggins. Like I said, his career was really a balance of singles and tag work. And they were actually the opponents, him and Reno, the opponents of one debuting Smoking Guns. And that they're also, as a tag team, they're kind of frequent competitor. Of course, our previous guest, Oscar, they would also take on Men on a Mission quite often. And so the tag work there, just interesting, kind of how this is all playing together and the timelines and what they were doing here. So he was also in a singles match now. He was taking on a debuting wrestler. This was one Thurman Sparky Plug. I don't know if you remember who Thurman Sparky Plug was, Tom.
Oh, come on. You think I just started watching wrestling last week? It's obviously Bob Holly, but I was 11 years old when he debuted, and I still remember he had these stupid vignettes. Hey, I'm Sparky Plug, and I just remember thinking it was the stupidest fucking thing I had ever seen in my life. It was horrible. Go back and watch it if you.
I do remember the vignettes.
Oh, yeah. It was so.
I'm glad you remembered it too. Yes,
it was so bad, yes.
We will scour YouTube for some of that stuff, and so this does proving our point, though, that if you had a skilled trade or skills job in the '90s, you could be a wrestler.
The occupational gimmick era. This guy has a car. Well, we're gonna make him a race car driver. God damn it! I'll be like NASCAR. Like, oh my God,
Yeah, it just was that. So took the loss there too. And of course, hardcore Bob Holly turning that one. But now we finally get to kind of our storyline here, though. We'll kind of jump forward a little bit here. And again, he might got the occasional house or dark match win, but he hadn't won. We'll just kind of call it that. And this is where we get to the Body Donnas. And so you had Skip, Zip, and Sonny. And so Skip being one Chris Candido. Zip, a name that we've kind of brought off one, was a Tom Pritchard, who, yes, relation to Bruce Pritchard, and then Sonny. And so a tag team very much destined for greatness. So, but the Body Donnas were just debuting. And so Skip was beating Horowitz, really the house show circuit. And so this was March 1995. So if you remember, that a lot happened. We were back October 1991. We've now fast forward to March 1995. Horowitz, again, at best, had a half dozen wins. And so since his return in 1991, though, nothing on the level that WWE was acknowledging Horowitz being anything more than just like a jobber or enhancement talent. Part of a big thing in his appeal was that, he'd give himself a pat on the back. And so he would literally like kind of reach with his arm above his head and give himself a pat on the back. And so
he had a t-shirt with a handprint on the back.
He had the t-shirt. It was like the reverse Jack Swagger, Jack Hager. So
I mean, I need to find one of those online and like wear it when we go to WrestleMania.
I'm sure eBay will have one. So it has to. So in the kind of lead up to these matches, Skip, from my count, he pinned Horowitz 6 or 7 times during these house shows. It's just, it couldn't get the win. And so they really didn't have a TV rivalry, but along the way, because Horowitz, he was having matches against, we had Jeff Jarrett, he was taking on The Undertaker, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, some big names, and Mantar too. I can't forget Mantar. Love Mantar. Up until this point, kind of all the losses, like Skip and the Body Down on Sunday, they were really just kind of getting going after their recent debut. And so I'll say that when this match was happening, it was on a challenge show. It wasn't, there was no reason to think that anything crazy was going to happen or anything out of the ordinary, and that it would be such a turning point for Barry Horowitz's career. So that brings us to the taped in late June, but airing on Wrestling Challenge in early July, the matches of Barry Horowitz versus Skip. And we will get into what happened a little bit later. So, Tom, got a lot of angles at this one, but what'd you think of the build so far?
A couple things. I forget how much Barry Horowitz did, and we'll talk more about that in the aftermath, but the guy was just involved in a lot, which I think is pretty cool. Fun stuff, a lot of moving pieces there. I love it. I'll just add that, that Skip and Sonny combo, they were so obnoxious. Oh my God, they were so annoying. So he was over as a heel. I mean, it worked, and it was a pretty strong gimmick, I thought. Like a good use of him, just being kind of smaller, like this obnoxious guy, the outfits, and, Sonny being the heel. And then, Jeff, I got to tell you, some of my fondest memories as a teenage boy were Sonny on AOL.
No, we don't have to talk about that anymore. But yeah,
no, I'll just leave it at that.
I was a Sonny Mark too. I think we all were at some point. So yeah,
not so much these days.
Yeah, well, we're you and I both are big Trish Stratus fans nowadays. But yeah, different stories for the after show.
That's right. So yeah, I love them. Barry's been around, so that was fun. This is a really fun couple of matches and interview, and he was a great guest. So looking forward to that. Again, if you want to watch these matches with Barry, it's the July 9th, 1995 Wrestling Challenge match. Obviously, it's quick, but we'll watch that and discuss it. And then I'll let you know when to switch over to the August 12th, 1995 Superstars, which was that 10-minute challenge. So with that being said, as always, thanks for listening, and it's time for The Payoff.
Ho! It's time for The Payoff.
All right, we are here with Barry Horowitz, and we are about to cover two matches consecutively that I distinctly remember as a child and just love this entire angle. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. Pleasure to be there.
All right, so we're talking about this first match you had against Skip, the Horowitz wins, massive upset. When did you first hear that you were going to be going over in this match and part of an angle?
Wow. I walked into TV. If I'm not mistaken, that win, I could be wrong, was either in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. I don't know if it was Wilkesboro, New Jersey, or College, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. But I walk in, and Kevin Nash alluded to me that something's maybe going on. And, in the wrestling business, a lot of ribs and stuff. So I just went along with it. No problem. I'm not going to say, nah. And then all of a sudden, I guess before we get started, I think it was after catering, because I remember going into catering and it was empty there. And I met with Pat Patterson, sat down at the table, and he ran it by me. And he says, just as an experiment, we'll see how it goes. And this is what we're going to do. And we went over to finish and so forth. And yeah, that was the beginning of my push that night.
Yeah. So according to Bruce Pritchard, it was Patterson's idea to do it. So is that who you primarily worked with on this angle?
Yes, mostly Pat. And then other people would join in, but Pat was in, he was the head man. Yes. In charge.
Chris Candido, what'd you think of him as a performer?
Oh, excellent. He's my style. He's just, we're all, good workers are about getting the match over, not themselves, not their opponent, not the ref. Get the match over and you'll feel better. The match will be better. And that's the way business should be. And that's how Chris was. And it wasn't pulling teeth working with him. He's my style of worker. He's a technical, sound heel or baby face. He trained hard. He worked hard. Everything he did to perfection in my eyes. He, went above and beyond. And he was a good guy, too. But he told me he said when we first met, he says he was a fan of mine before he actually got going into the wrestling business, or when he first started. I first met him briefly in Smoky Mountain, probably 91 or 92. He was Chris Candido, black trunks. That's it. And I don't think he was with Sonny or what have you. That was it. And we met briefly on a big show for Smoky Mountain. I remember that night. And then I meet him years later. The Body Donnas, Chris Candido and Sonny, and Skip and Sonny. And I enjoyed wrestling with him a lot. There was just a good camaraderie, and he was just a good person. Him and a few other people in this, athletes in this business, just off the top of my head, Chris Candido, Owen Hart, just gone too soon. I RIP to both of them and everybody else that has gone too soon. It's sad. It really is.
All right, here it comes. So we got him doing the push-ups and then roll up and 1, 2, 3. And do you remember? Obviously you can tell the fans are going nuts. Do you remember looking around going, "Oh yeah, that worked"?
Yeah, I did. I said, "This is over. This match is over." See, again, the match was over. The people were going. It was deafening. And I remember it was very cold that night walking back to the rent-a-car, and I was traveling with Dutch Mantell, and we were just talking business and what have you. And, God, I don't even think I felt the cold weather. I was on such a elated high from being, from the push getting over, and just, it was just a different chapter on my journey, and it was incredible. It was just incredible.
Well, this stuff just didn't happen back then. So, I remember just being shocked. It was like one of the most shocking things I'd ever seen in pro wrestling. It was that wild because, as a kid, I'd been conditioned to watch, 6 of these matches per hour for years. Mm-hmm. And, always knew who's going to win. And then all of a sudden there, and, my, first crush Sonny there, not happy. They were good. They were a good team. They were good characters.
Yeah.
And people hated them. Now, did they have any issue putting you over? Was there any resistance? Did he think it was going to hurt him, or was he happy to do it?
No, I never heard of. Tom, I never heard of nothing. I may have heard of a small rumor about that, but I think that was hearsay because it was on a scale of 1 to 10. It was like a 3. I heard it once, and if that was true, that's too bad. That's the professional wrestling business, and you could take it or leave it. So, if there was any animosity or worrying about your win-loss record, that's ludicrous if you think about it. If you're worried about your win-loss record in professional wrestling, well, you need to quit and call up Dana White and demand a match in the UFC so you can get your ass beat in about 30 seconds.
I heard you say something good on a recent podcast. You said when you go to cash the check at the bank, they don't ask if you won or lost.
No. They say how much you want to put in your account, Mr. Horowitz, Mr. Technical. Yeah, they don't say, did you win or lose?
And so before we go on to match number 2 in this series where you had the 10-minute match where Skip said, he could beat you in under 10 minutes, I got to ask you, so after this match, on the same TV taping, they had you lose to Triple H. Were you wondering, hey, if you're going to put me over, then why are you having me lose on the same taping? Did that cross your mind at all?
Not at all. It's just business. Everybody has an ego, but I didn't have an ego for that. Again, remember now about the win-loss record. No, it was just part of business, and no, didn't think nothing of it. And a lot of people in today's business, or even back then, maybe you should question. It's more of a business thing to go with it than go against the grain, in my opinion. Now, there's certain things you stick up for yourself, but for the most part, in the professional wrestling business, especially working for Vince, he'll just get somebody else, take it or leave it. I just don't agree with it. But once again, we're not worried about the win-loss record. You shouldn't. And unless you got, unless there's a problem with that, you shouldn't even be in the business then.
No kidding. So, all right, we're going to now go to the second match here, which is August 12th, 1995. This is on Superstars. Mm-hmm. Skip says that you certainly can't last 10 minutes, and he's going to beat you. So we're going to go ahead and play right now on that match. During this run, Did you see a bump in pay? I mean, did they start taking care of you a little bit, or was it the same pay that you had been getting before and after this push?
I think it was it was better. It was better for my career as far as visual and rankings and financially. I mean, remember now, I was a part of every pay-per-view. I was captain of my summer Survivor Series team. I was a featured match on the SummerSlam, Royal Rumbles, In Your House matches, various promos, did a commercial for Karate Fighters with Hakushi for, I think, Mattel or Hasbro. So, yeah, it was beneficial to my career as far as exposure and the wrestling business and financially, yes.
So how did the payoffs work in the pay-per-views? I mean, did you just get your check and you went, oh, okay, this is what I got for Survivor Series, or was it a separate pay? How did all that work? It seemed very
trying to think now. I think it was separate, and you didn't get it for a while because of they got to tally up everything from the pay-per-view. But normally those checks are phenomenal.
Well, you really had never worked pay-per-views, and then you worked, most of them during this 95, 96 run.
Yeah.
So it must have made a
difference. They were substantially different than your regular house shows and TV and whatnot. I mean, we're talking the cream of the crop of the paychecks.
So you mentioned, and here you are in this 10-minute match, just trying to last and get your W here. So you had mentioned Hakushi. Tell me about your relationship with him, because they ran vignettes where you were trying to Americanize him, as they said.
Yeah.
How was working with Hakushi? That must have been fun.
Well, yeah, first of all, he's really a polite gentleman. And here's the thing I've worked for All Japan for a couple of years, and the Japanese wrestlers, and everybody should break in Japan. I mean, the young boys, they're all taught, they pay their dues from day one. I mean, when you see these superstars up there, back in the day, Kabashi, Kawada, Mizawa, Tiger Mask, they were all young boys paying dues. When I mean young boys, I mean you don't take a shower till the end of the night. Even if you take a shower, if you even get to take a shower, you're going to set up you're going to wash the giant Baba's back. You're going to set up the ring, then break it down. You're going to do a lot of paying dues, and you'll wrestle at night, and you're going to get your ass beat too. I mean, there's no flinching there. You get drop kicked off the top rope there, it's there. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 8 out of a 10. They don't play there, but that's paying dues. And if you can't wrestle, and I emphasize that word wrestle, that's what's on the marquee outside Madison Square Garden, wrestle. You can't do that there, you're going home on a plane next day.
That's what I've heard. It's a whole different world over there. So
basically, the Ultimate Warrior can't go to Japan.
You got to tell me, was he stiff as hell?
Maybe a little reckless stiff, nervous stiff, didn't know what he was doing stiff. Sometimes, not always.
So it's funny. I've heard people say certain things, like when he would do the overhead press, he wouldn't hold you the right way. And I mean, you go back and you watch it, and I mean, people just look like they're holding on for dear life. It's uncomfortable. And, you can tell if you really pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm sure it must be frustrating because, you're giving your body to someone, and that's how you make money. So it's got to be a little frustrating.
Yeah, the press slam, I've seen a lot of guys do it, and I've taken a lot of press slams. I've seen a lot of guys. I gotta admit, Lex Luger, in my opinion, gave the best press slam. He did it with ease. There was no problem. He wasn't nervous, and he took care of you. So, I mean, I've been press slammed by a lot of people, but I got to say that's one of my favorites as far as done professionally and looked right and took care of you. Yeah, Warriors was reckless.
Yeah, you could tell if you go back and watch it. So, these matches with Skip, are you calling the match? Is he calling the match? Did you guys lay this out in advance? What was the process of putting together these matches?
A little bit of both. Laid it out, ad-libbed. He ad-libbed, I ad-libbed. We're both capable of calling the match. Normally the heel calls it, but when you've been a heel and baby, you're allowed to do either one. So, yeah, it was both. You mentioned that, too. I remember specifically certain people in this business would never say a word, let the heel call a match completely. And at the top of my list was Brad Armstrong, Tommy Wildfire Rich, and Tom Zink, the Z-Man.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool too. Just, and there was others too, but I remember those in particular. And they're great guys, all of them.
So you went to Florida State. Were you playing any sports there? What were you studying?
I went to Florida State to wrestle, and I also took up sports nutrition. So I'm a certified nutritionist, and something to fall back on. It was my forte. I was into that. I didn't get to graduate because, first of all, I couldn't afford it, and second of all, I got to turn pro. So I don't know if I would have stayed there to 4 years and got my degree in nutrition and what have you, would it have progressed as good as my career? But who's to know? But who's to care? Because that wasn't my dream. The dream was professional wrestling. So I had to pursue it.
So according to the internet, there's a song by rapper Action Bronson that had you in it. What's the story with this? This is my first time hearing this.
Yeah, I almost don't even put it over no more. It's just a waste of time. But you're asking me, Tom, and you're a gentleman, and I'll be honest with you. Somebody just told me, hey, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, I don't even know who you're talking about. First of all, I don't care about rap. Like Kurt Hennig used to say, rap is crap. But anyway, Kurt was great with words. Love that guy. Rest in peace also. What a technician. And his father's a great man, too. And the state where he comes from is great. I love Minnesota. Great athletes. But anyway, and I said, huh? And it was the title song, the title track, Barry Horowitz. They're using WWF footage. And I'm going, what the heck? I mean, did you get permission? Did you do this? And I guess I got with WWF, and I wasn't under contract, so they're not going to pursue. Maybe if I was Hogan or John Cena and I'm under contract, they would have closed that up overnight with Vince's powerful lawyers. So I had to pursue it myself. And you know what? I'm not going to spend all that money and chase some wannabe. I've got more shower time than he's got lifetime. So
yeah, I'd never heard of the guy. I just saw it online.
I never heard of him. When I hear rapping, the first thing that's in my mind is people like Nicki Minaj and Kanye West, Tupac, Biggie. These are relevant, real rappers. Okay, Eminem. Okay, not Action Bro. I don't even know who he is, and I really don't care. But it's disrespectful, very disrespectful. And if you just think probably thought I'm not going to do nothing about it, or they didn't know. Somebody's not thinking, and it's not worth my time. I'm better than that.
That's it. And for all the listeners out there, do not download this guy's music if you can even find it, if he still has a career. That's ridiculous. So
you may find him at a pizza parlor in Brooklyn or something, eating his seventh pizza in a row or something. I don't know.
All right. Well, glad we cleared that one up. But had to ask.
You asked, Tom. I didn't bring it up. You asked. And you're a gentleman. I got to tell the truth. I'm not going to BS nobody.
Oh no! Here we go. Minute left in the match, and we cleared that up. I said this can't be real, and it turns out it is. So there you go. Learn something new every day, kids. All right. So
that's it. Pays to get up in the morning.
Yeah, so 50 seconds left in the match. We're building towards SummerSlam. Did you know at the point that this was the plan, that we were going to do this 10-minute match, it wasn't going to end, and then you were building towards SummerSlam 95 where you would be featured with a singles match? Did you know that at this time?
Tom, that's another good question. I may and may not. I don't recall, to be exact. I'm not sure if that was told to me or not. Yeah, that's a good one. I'm not positive on that. I couldn't swear on a stack of Bibles the response to that for what you just said, because so much was going on back then, and a lot to consume and a lot to process and digest.
I mean, they're all on their feet here. I still remember this as a kid. There were some little things that you did in this match, one of which was right before the time expired here. People were, again, going crazy. I just remember you did this thing where you would try and pin him. He'd move his shoulder. You'd try and pin him again. I just never seen it done before. It was just little subtle things like that really added a lot to the match.
Yeah. When you wrestle a match, a story told from A to Z, from the opening bell to the closing bell, these little intricate things make you go from a good worker to a great worker. And that's what I like to achieve. And I watched a lot of great workers in my career, before, during, and after my career.
So what did you think of people would say the term jobber. What did you think of that term?
Well, I just don't like that word. It's an old school pro wrestling verbiage. It's just part of our vocabulary. I just don't, it sounds like basically like, yeah, you're a jobber, a piece of crap. I don't like that. I've never used that word. It's enhancement. You're putting a guy over. Everybody wins, everybody loses. That's just the way it goes. If you follow life, I mean, football, hockey, basketball, poker, what have you, there's got to be a winner and a loser. That's just inevitable. That's life. And
if you're going to say it about someone, then make it someone that's overshaped, that drives a truck during the week and is just taking a couple of bucks on the weekend. I mean, you're sitting there, you're in great shape, you're running around the ring, you got the amateur wrestling background, and you're doing some things that were pretty interesting and creative. You're working your ass off full time, so it just seems like again, and they say it about guys now that are in phenomenal shape, can go out there and put in a 30-minute match. So.
Well, people that say that are ignorant and they're marks because they don't know what they're talking about. Back in the day, you'd have a guy, and you could see it, very pasty looking, out of shape. Maybe his singlet didn't fit him right. You knew he had a regular job. He gets beat like in 30 seconds, or he lasts maybe 2 or 3 minutes. He gets to throw a gut punch in or a headbutt. That was his plan. He knew that, and that's as far as he's going. Well, I started there. Everybody started there. You start, like I said, you start that way in Japan also. But I'm not going to do that the rest of I'm going to progress. Why would I keep all my tricks in a bag and not open the bag that Malenko's taught me and the other various wrestlers going up and down the roads? Why wouldn't you want to progress and be a better worker and technician?
So, last question for you, and then we're gonna call it a day on these two matches, which were fun to watch. They really were. And I forgot how over the angle was. I mean, I just love, as we're watching these on mute, I just love watching the fans, and that tells me how over an angle was, how excited people were, how surprised they were, and man, they were into you. But all right, so we covered this on a previous episode. You wrestled everyone, and when I say everyone, I'm talking like Yokozuna to Goldberg to Shawn Michaels to Ric Flair. I mean, it's unbelievable. Here's what I want to ask you, though. Of everyone you ever wrestled, who do you think was the most underrated or maybe underappreciated wrestler?
I don't know if I could narrow that to one, Tom. Tim Lightning Horner, Reno Riggins. There's definitely more than one. There's a guy named Ben Jordan, Jerry Lynn. I mean, there was quite a few. I mean, this is what I'm reverting back to as far as, you could do everything right and it's still not enough, which is discouraging. But so there's quite a few. I don't think I could narrow it down to one. It's really, I'd have to really sit and ponder this one for a while.
Yeah, Jerry Lynn's a great one. I mean, that guy was phenomenal. And you wrestled him early in his career, early in your career, right?
Yeah, the Global Wrestling Federation. I defeated him for the light heavyweight championship on TV in the Dallas Sportatorium back in the day. And, I think I wrestled him twice for that belt. Yeah, that's the first time I met him, if I'm not mistaken. Jerry Lynn's a heck of an athlete, wrestler, comes from Minnesota, was trained properly. He's a good guy to this day. I saw him about a month ago at a signing in Monroe, New Jersey, a Legends signing, and he looked great. He's a good guy. Good guy. I think he's involved with the new promotion out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, I believe he's a trainer. I got to tell you, so it's funny. Everyone remembers your WWF, WWE run, some work in WCW. You held a lot of titles over the course of your career. You mentioned global light heavyweight champion, Florida NWA heavyweight champion. You held a number of titles. Was there?
Yeah, I had some regional belts, from small promotions, what have you. I got to say, my biggest claim to fame is probably the Florida heavyweight title when I defeated Mike Graham in his hometown. That was probably cream of the crop there. And then, the global was cool too. And then I got opportunities to wrestle Sting for the belt one time on a Saturday night main event when WCW did that back in the day. And I think On Monday Night Raw in California, wrestled Double J, Jeff Jarrett, for the Intercontinental title. So I've had many opportunities.
Goldberg for the U.S. title. I don't know if he was the world champion at the time, but you had a TV match with Bret Hart that was pretty good as well. I mean, it's just your resume is unbelievable. I love it.
Thanks.
So that wraps up those two matches. Look forward on a future episode about talking to you about the 95 SummerSlam against Skip. But hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining the show. And hey, if fans want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you here in this day and age?
Well, nowadays I'm involved in my nutrition work, but also I do a lot of meet and greets, and I may even go back into the ring after my knee heals. I twisted it and also hurt it from doing squats. So that may happen. They could get me on the Facebook, and they can go to WWE.com. They could find me through the Horowitz.com, MrTechnical.info. All you got to do is put my name in, and it's going to go. But the Facebook is pretty cool. And also, 2 weeks ago, on a Thursday, I got a phone call, and I was announced that I will be in the New England Hall of Fame. I'm inducted next year, Providence, Rhode Island, next year. So I will be inducted into the New England Hall of Fame, which really the Hall of Fame, the first and original, was in New York. It was moved to Texas. Second is the WWE. And third is the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and they always do it in Rhode Island. So it's based out of Boston, and it's a big whoop-de-doo. A lot of icons are in that, and I was flattered to be called and inducted, and I'm looking forward to the ceremony. That's on my Facebook. There's information and pictures and whatnot, and there's a lot of information there on my Facebook.
So find you on Facebook. You're still doing appearances. You may have another match left in you. When's the last time you had a match? Who was it? Where was it at?
Okay. My last match was probably 10 years ago. It was in the Manatee Civic Center in Manatee County in Florida, which what is funny about that building, it was a newer building, but now it's old. I've wrestled for every promotion at that building. I wrestled for WWF, WCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, and I think another. So I've wrestled there for 3 or 4 different companies. And the person I wrestled, his last name, it was the Davis twins, I think. They're twins. They're on the independent circuit, and I just saw them at a convention in Lutz, Florida, 3 weeks ago. The first time since that match, they were both there to see me and say hello. It was a meet and greet, and it was basically the legends of Florida Championship Wrestling. Bob Orton Jr. was there, Larry Zbyszko, Gordon Soley's son, Ricky Steamboat, a host of other people that were there. I mean, it was very busy, and it was pretty cool. Barry Rose, he's a promoter out of Philadelphia. They promoted that with Dave Penzer, and he's also another promoter, and they have a lot of meet and greets all over the place. It's very big in the Northeast. That was really cool. That's what, getting back to, I think it was Scott Davis. And I remember, we had a heck of a match. It was a good crowd, and I remember beating them with a Northern Light suplex.
Wow. You went out on top, but you're thinking that knee heals up, and you may have one more in you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so. I train 6 days a week. I'm sure I've got some ring rust, but, muscle memory comes back pretty quick when it comes to training and pro wrestling, in my opinion, anyway. But my forte, my long-range goal, and I've achieved almost every one of them, is to train wrestlers the way I was trained, like by Malenko. And who would it be? I mean, I would love to work for, the Performance Center for WWE. I wouldn't mind, if Impact Wrestling wants me, Ring of Honor wants me, the new company in Jack. First come, first serve. But I would love to do that. I mean, it's right up my alley as far as not only teaching holds and bumps, but how to get in the ring, how to lock up, how to conduct yourself in a professional manner inside the locker room and outside. You know what I mean? It goes a long way. It's just not getting a headlock and you're a pro wrestler. Somebody teaches you in 3 or 4 months. I mean, I'm sorry. In my book, that's not getting taught properly.
All right. Well, Triple H, if you're listening, Facebook, that's how you get a hold of Barry.
If you're listening, Triple H, or Cody Rhodes, if you're listening, Scott D'Amore, if you're listening, and most of these guys, here's the thing, back in the day, I got to see film on this guy. I'm not trying to put myself over, Tom, but if you haven't heard about me or know my resume like Tom does, you don't know wrestling. You don't watch wrestling, and you're not a fan. You're a liar.
That's right. Well, hey, you know what? Triple H owes you a favor because you put him over during your run in '95. So that's how he can make good on that.
That would be cool. I mean, I put him over a few times. In fact, I think I was one of his first matches when he came in as Hunter Hearst Helmsley in '95. Yeah, I'm almost positive. I was at least in the top 3 of first, when he came from, if I'm not mistaken, he came from WCW as Terra Horizon.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And he turned into a hell of a worker.
Let me end this with a little bit of trivia. One of your final WWF wins in '96 was over Isaac Yankem, who went on to be Kane. So you got the resume, my friend. So, hey, this was great. Look forward to catching up with you again to talk SummerSlam '95 on a future episode. Thanks so much, Barry.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me, and it was a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
Welcome back. Got to thank Barry Horowitz for joining us, doing my research and giving these matches the time they deserve. It was fun. I enjoyed this. Just a real feel-good, great story. The matches, not anything to really brag about in regards to performance, but still fun to, see Horowitz survive and get the win here. So, Tom, what did you think about the payoff?
I enjoyed it, man. This wasn't like the main event feud of the summer, right? It's an undercard feud. It was fun. It was unexpected. They got a couple months out of it. I liked it. I mean, it was a good secondary show feud that was fun, that was different, that I liked. I think it was really well done. And who doesn't like the underdog story, which, I mean, that's what they're telling. So I liked it. Barry was an awesome guest. I love his quote when he's like, yeah, when you go to cash the check at the bank, they don't ask you if you won or lost. I don't know why. I thought that was pretty funny.
He's right, though.
Over the course of his career, man, great career. Bret Hart, Goldberg, Shawn Michaels. He was in the ring with a ton of guys. He was on Raw. He was on Nitro. Won a bunch of titles down in Florida and throughout some different territories earlier in his career as well. It was great to connect with him. It's not someone you hear about or see often, so it was fun. I liked it. With that being said, Jeff, let's go aftermath, what happened, and then we'll give our payoff scores.
Yeah, I will start with, depending on how you saw this match, you might have actually heard 2 different calls. I'm going to call this the Goonies effect because some people don't think the octopus scene was real, even though it was real, that there were 2 different calls on this. So if your friends have been debating over the years, we're going to settle the debate right here. There were 2 calls. So if you were watching on WWF Action Zone, you heard from JR was Horowitz wins, Horowitz wins. But if you were watching on the WWF Action Zone was like a kind of a clip show. They re-recorded it later after the fact. Just a little bit different. On the WWF Challenge, though, you would have heard Horowitz beat him. Can you believe it? From JR. And so both calls from JR, but odd, just kind of an odd piece of trivia here in regards to how the call played out. So there was 2 different calls.
And the Horowitz wins is great. Like, right, it's classic. How they switch. Like, I got to understand if they started with the Horowitz beat him. Can you believe it? But then why they changed it, I don't know. And I just thought it was kind of odd.
So that revisionist history. So it was actually, like Tom said, they recorded a lot that day. So on the taping later that day, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, he actually beat Barry Horowitz. So the kind of winning streak was over very quickly, but it didn't air until weeks after this win. So that was okay. But Skip and Sonny, like we kind of saw here, Barry got the win, but the initial win. But then after this one, Skip and Sonny came down to the ring for a beatdown and said that Horowitz couldn't last 10 minutes against him, which is how we then ended up getting this 10-minute match. And it did actually do a third match that was at SummerSlam 1995, where he once again beat Skip. It was his first ever pay-per-view victory. Of course, like not just a victory, but also his first pay-per-view victory. It was roughly a 12-minute match, and so he got the win there. It really, all of this just brief little run here, it endeared Horowitz to the crowd. Like, he started getting some wins. They liked him as the underdog. Just a few other occasions occasions after this where he got wins, but for the most part, it was back to kind of the losing ways and some streaks with that. But, that kind of feel-good win, it was good stuff. And so he actually also, he did have a gimmick. He became what can only be described as a Jewish geek, a Jewish nerd, however you want to kind of do it. Can't do that anymore, though, but that was kind of the gimmick that he had. He'd have these kind of huge glasses, like the horn rim glasses, and have a dress shirt on, just a pocket protector, just real nerdy type, stereotypical look that you would think. And then his music too is also a remix of the Hava Nagila, and so Vince just really knocking out of the park with that one. So again, things you could not do on TV in 2019. So of course, it had some success here, kind of doing these different types of things, but and they're good to see too these feuds kind of playing out, on TV and in different ways, and covering 2 matches, it was worth it on this one because just the first one was short after the roll up, but then also too, it did kind of play into the story a little bit here. So, Tom, what'd you think?
Well, I can just hear Vince. God damn it, pal, Horowitz. Is that Jewish? Yes, Mr. McMahon, it is. Well, hell, let's have you come out to the Jewish song and we'll put the symbol on your trunks. Don't love it. I mean, yeah, they did this geek thing. They had him come out. Oh my God. The other thing you didn't mention, and we'll try to work this into a future episode. There was also some vignettes later on this year where Barry Horowitz was trying to Americanize Hakushi.
Yes, I did not talk about that. So
go back and watch those. Maybe we'll post it. I mean, it's exactly what you think it is. It's absurd.
I will say, yeah.
Okay, so, and this is probably an after show topic, but the only enhancement talent upset I can think of that is as good or maybe better than this, and I think you could debate back and forth, would be the Kid beating Razor Ramon on Raw.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I mean, those are like the two. And yeah, there's been upsets and this and that, but like, dude, those are the two that really stick out to me and are both great. But like I said, I love this one. I thought it was really well done. That's really all I have. Let's talk write-ups, reviews. What were you able to find about this?
Not much. That's the interesting thing is that, I went to our kind of common sources here on this one, and, there just wasn't a lot written at the time because it just wasn't, I say, a big deal. And so I scoured a little bit on the Torch and the Wrestling Observer and couldn't really find anything here other than I think there was one line that like Horowitz got the win. That was about it. Grapple didn't even have a score. Kind of the more recent thing I found, Bleacher Report, they had the SummerSlam. It was their number 9 most shocking SummerSlam moment. They did have, and we touched on Hakushi a little bit here, but line that they had in here that I thought was just things weren't looking good for Barry at the SummerSlam match until Hakushi walked down to ringside. A distracted Skip was rolled up in a schoolboy, and Horowitz got the 3 count again on the body Donna. It may have not been pretty, but Barry Horowitz finally won a match on a big stage, and that was in regards to their SummerSlam match. I couldn't find anything in regards to their first couple of matches, and so not much to discuss on the official review front or the kind of the write-ups. This is I can only find on the SummerSlam stuff, but not a ton. So anything you can think of, Tom, before we kind of get to our scores?
No, I'll start with my score, and then you can give yours. And again, we don't discuss these ahead of time, so it's always fun to do it. And again, the payoff score is just what we thought of it overall. So it's not this was a 5-star classic match, and you should have seen the holds and the moves. And I mean, it's more about the angle and the crowd excitement and the build up and the aftermath and just taking it all in. So it was not the best summer in the history of the WWF. Your 2 main programs are Mabel and Diesel for the world title and Bret Hart fighting a dentist. So at the time, thirsty as fans for anything that was remotely interesting and exciting, I thought this did it, right? I mean, I really thought that this was a fun undercard, surprise, feud, underdog story. I dug it. So, you may not think it was a big deal, but at the time for an enhancement guy to win, it was a big deal. And Barry was pretty decent in the ring, athletic and kind of a different look and some different moves. And I just thought it was fun. Maybe it's just because I remember it so well as a kid. Overall, I'm going to give this a 6.5. I thought it was well done. I thought it was fun for what it was. And I dug it, man. Fun to go back and watch this. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, so random story that actually plays into my score here. I was playing a video game, Borderlands, with my buddy Twig just last week, and I kind of, revealed that we were doing this match with Barry Horowitz, and we had it lined up for this upcoming episode. And my recollection, he was pretty excited. He's like, "Oh, that one should be pretty good." And and at the time, I knew the story, like I said in the opening here, but I'd done zero research to this point, and so I got to shout him out because the brief conversation we had about this one and just kind of how he felt, and I kind of felt a little bit of excitement coming from him. It got me looking forward to it. I wanted to spend some extra time looking into it and learning about Barry's career and these couple of matches that we wanted to talk about. So, the match itself was a short affair, but the first match, 10-minute time draw, if you will, with the second one. Nothing special really on that one, other than just what it was. It was the win, which was a big deal, but the match itself wasn't, some technical, showcase. But you just got to love the feel-good story. You got to remember, too, that even I had to personally remember, like, at the time, there was little way to get this information out because there was no internet. And so they could do 4 tapings in a day and you weren't necessarily going to know what was happening. And even if he did have some of these house show wins or dark match wins, people, they didn't remember, it was in his first run. And so, it had kind of slipped away and that institutional memory wasn't there. And so I'll say the crowd's reaction, though, is proof of that in this moment, this was the right decision and nobody saw it coming. He got a bigger pop than I say, like some current superstars have gotten on their return or kind of wins that they have gotten. And so with the crowd giving this one an whole extra point, I was going to give it a 6, but with the crowd, I'm going to go with a 7. I feel like it could have been I feel like it could have been like a dreaded bathroom match, but then all of a sudden he wins big. And so we take everything into account here, and I think the crowd especially lost their mind, and I thought that was good. It really jump-started, we don't have, and, we catch hell on Twitter from people, "Oh, why would you give this, that, and that, this?" It's like, well, it's our score, and we kind of pull from everywhere. And I think the crowd played a big part in this one at the end of it. And hopefully, I'd hate to be the guy or the woman that was in the bathroom during this one thinking it wasn't going to be a big deal and just a Horowitz loss. And then all of a sudden you're standing there, sitting there, whatever, and the crowd's going nuts because Horowitz just got a win. And so just interesting stuff there. So Tom, any thoughts or anything like that before we send it home here?
No, if any of you listening were at that show and in the bathroom when it happened, definitely let us know.
Yes, please tweet at us because we would love to talk to you. Yeah, that would be funny. Proof of ticket required.
So that's a rare occurrence where you had a higher payoff score than me.
Well, lately, too, we've been having a big degree of separation, too. So you just never know with us.
I just feel like I have more enthusiasm for the wrestling business than you do. My numbers seem to be higher typically.
Well, we start covering some New Japan matches, and we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, so.
Hey, so just to close the loop on Buck Quartermain, born in 1967, best known for his time spent in TNA, where he formed a tag team with Lex Lovett. Worked in ECW, WWF, WCW. Was on a Raw and a Dark match, Sunday Night Heat, SmackDown. Lost in a handicap match to the Big Show in 2005. So how about that?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Trivia for everybody. Yep.
That's all I got, buddy. Oh, hey, the other one you mentioned was Tommy Angel.
Yeah, he does not. There's not a whole lot out there about him. So that one I did look up. So
he was a one-time Atlantic Coast Wrestling television champion.
Thank you. Whatever pro wrestling database or Cage Side, whatever you're looking at. So yeah. So
what do you got for us? Wrap us up.
Yeah, so love that enhancement talent going over. Great on Barry Horowitz. That's all I can say. He's not on social media, but we're going to start a hashtag for him. We're going to go Barry Horowitz next week. And so make sure to use that. Hopefully he sees it or someone points it out to him. And so didn't see him out there. But
guess what else we can do? We can use the hand emoticon.
Emoticon? Yes.
Emoticon. Yeah, we can do the hand.
We'll do the hand.
Yeah,
the pat on his back. We will definitely.
I'd assume that's why they created it, right?
I'm sure that's exactly why.
Tip of the cap to Barry Horowitz is run in the mid '90s.
Yep, someone at Apple is wearing that shirt right now, I bet you. So, of course, as always, subscribe to The Payoff. Give us those 5 stars. Spread the word about the show. Like I said in the opening, it's a little different now if you're listening on your computer and on a Mac with just that new podcast app. But, write that review because that's what, we want to get the word out there and, keep bringing this show to you. So, always active. Social media, we're at Payoff Pod. You can find us there. And then Patreon, just that one tier. PayoffPatreon.com. Check us out. And so, Tom, I'm going to give you the win. I know we both. It's a Wednesday evening when we're recording, and so
Healy wins. Healy wins.
We want to go watch some wrestling ourselves right now, and so I will let you get the win and send us home.
All right. Thank you, as always, for joining us on The Payoff.